you jumped in my stream last night. I got to try out some Killer Instinct for
Yeah.
really the first time. I've fiddled with it before, but really actually spent some time with it for a
Yeah.
few hours last night. And I gotta
How
say,
did that make you feel?
no, it's funny. I gotta say, there's two things going on here. One, I was always sort of how do I want to say this? Afraid to play the game, if that makes
Sure,
sense, because
it does.
there's a lot of things that like I don't understand about this game, a lot of concepts that I don't understand, and
Yes.
it's overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
But having dug in and played a little bit, and of course you in the chat were giving me some tips, I felt much better after having played the game.
That's good.
So actually, one of the first things I want to ask you is, even though this game's been out for what, I think close to 3 years now, right? Is it? Are we going
Yeah.
on 4 years?
I came out at
2000?
Xbox One launch, which I guess was like October or was it September 2013?
Yeah. Okay.
So
Um,
it's been a while now.
do you get that a lot with Killer Instinct? I mean, do you get that a lot with players that are afraid to try this game or afraid of sort of like the overwhelming mechanics, or they feel the mechanics are overwhelming?
Oddly enough, only from fighting game players.
That figures.
The people who should be least afraid to try it are the most afraid to try it. It's really quite stupid. Everybody else who's not into fighting games is like, oh, there's cool explosions. And then they put their hands on it and they're like, oh, I'm mashing the buttons and my character's doing a 60 hit, 60% damage combo. I feel like a god. And they're smiling and having fun instantly, which is what we want, right? It's only seasoned fighting game players who are scared to play KI because they have an expectation of themselves that is something greater than I'm going to have a good time here, right? Their expectation is I have to get book smart here. I have to learn what all these characters can do, and that that's why Infil wrote his guide. I'm sure you've seen that.
Yep.
It's the best fighting game guide ever created for any game, and we're fortunate enough to have a guy who loves Killer Instinct enough and solve the problem you're seeing, which is people are intimidated, and wrote something about it.
So since you brought it up, I just want to give a shout out to Infilament, ki.infil.net. For anyone that's interested in checking out this Killer Instinct, it's like an extensive Killer Instinct guide, going from the basics to combos to combo breakers, of course, to character details.
It has videos embedded in everything. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the other part of last night, me fooling around in this game for a few hours, was that I finished it. I finished my short stint, and I just remember thinking to myself a couple hours later, like, I'm actually still thinking about this game.
It happens.
I played through, some of the training stuff, which you saw. I actually, after that, went in and just for the heck of it, played a few matches online. Got bodied by a Shadow Jago player a bunch of times, but actually, I snuck a game out of one of those.
Nice.
But playing as General Rom, of course, from Gears of War, which I love Gears of War. That's why.
Yeah.
I felt guilty not getting into the game sooner, because there's all these characters that I'm like, God, these characters are so badass looking. Why aren't I playing this game?
And the community who was with it from day one started with 6 characters.
Yeah.
And they got to learn them one by one as they came out, which is like totally digestible, right? And now if you jump in, it's like, oh, well, there's 25 or 26 or whatever, really, really different characters. How do I even start to digest this? It's tough.
And I think that's actually something that happened with me with Ultra Street Fighter 4, because I had been out of Street Fighter 4 for a while, and then I came back to Ultra. I'm like, Jesus, there's 44 characters. Where do I even begin? So I just played a Mashy T-Hawk, and it was awful.
Yeah, I've been playing a long time myself, and my advice to anyone who's struggling with that exact question, is actually a pretty easy solution. Play every single character in the game for 1 hour each.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
That's all you have to do. You don't have to do tutorials. Just drop them into training mode, read their command list, play them 10 minutes, play matches for the better part of an hour, move to the next one. You will have a pretty damn good idea of what everyone does by the end of that. And how to beat it too.
But I wanted to ask you also, you guys just had a content drop with, of course, a new character, Kilgore. Who, if $10, if you purchase that character, half of that goes to the Killer Instinct World Cup, which we'll talk about in a second here.
It goes to the KI Tour for 2017. So some of that money will, probably go to KI Cup or wherever, but it'll also go to other events. And it's not just prize money. This money also goes to support events. So, your favorite TOs are going to get sponsored and things of that nature that are good for all of us. It's good stuff.
How's that new patch? How's that character been received? I'm always curious about when you guys do these new content drops, especially with new characters.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, it's fair to say probably that Killer Instinct is a much smaller community compared to something like Street Fighter V.
Pretty
So I'm
fair.
always
Yeah.
curious when you guys bring out new content, how the community responds, or how you get more interest in your game.
Yeah. Well, I think our community, who's been with us a while, totally understands that our game is hyper diverse
Right.
and that they shouldn't expect any new character to play like any old character.
Hmm.
So you're not going to run into a lot of, gee, I really like Jago. I hope they'll put another Jago in the game, because we're not going to
Right.
do it. We're just not going to do it. We're going to put in something that plays so different than everything else in the game that it has the potential to attract a new player, someone who
Yeah.
looks at the cast. Well, I don't know how you could look at the cast at this point and say there's nothing for me there.
Right.
But
Right.
you know, if there were, we're still adding new styles to the game, and the next two characters will also add brand new styles to the game. That might make somebody from the outside, such as yourself, look in and be like, "That's just too cool. I can't not play anymore."
Right. Yeah.
That happened. I think our biggest spurt of that was actually Gargos.
Okay,
Gargos
yeah.
was really interesting
That makes
because Gargos really upset the existing player base. They were like, these minions are stupid and I'm losing and I'm upset and I don't want to figure this out. And it's tough because there's no examples in historical fighting games of how to beat a character like Gargos, because there is no
Right.
character in fighting games like Gargos. He is wildly unique. And we're very proud of that.
One of the things that you mentioned, that the community being sort of like with the complaints or issues with Gargos. I mean, I'll admit I'm not as in tune with the Killer Instinct community, but I recall in the past seeing some complaints about this or that, whatever the content is at the time, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that I've noticed, especially recently, is, to me, it just seems like there's a lot less of the sort of the griping and complaining that we see a lot of in Street Fighter V right now. And,
Yeah.
What's-
it's
what is it
everywhere,
about
right?
KI that I guess is different about that?
I
Is it just that
I'm not
fun
going to say.
factor?
I'm not going to say we don't have our, loud griping.
Sure, absolutely,
It's it's been a rough ride. We're making a game that has experimental rules, and we're adding experimental characters to it, and we're doing it one at a time. And sometimes they come out way too strong, because in our limited test time, we know there's no way to really figure out how this character that doesn't play like any character that's ever been made before is really going to shake out. Sometimes they come out way too weak. And we play ourselves in the office, and we watch everybody play. We listen to everybody, and we do our best to try and diagnose viruses instead of attack symptoms, and
Right.
and push all the characters into the middle as best as we can, or push them all to the top. However you want to view it, we're scrunching tiers down as best as we can. But not every decision we make is perfect, and people get uppity, and sometimes there's a bug in the game for too long because we have no idea how to fix it, and that's just a game dev reality we could talk for a whole half hour about if we wanted.
Right.
So there's plenty of complaining there as well, but I think it's been a double-edged sword, but I do think what helps occasionally is how open we've been. We maybe over-communicate with our player base.
Okay.
I'm very accessible on Twitter and in stream chats, and I'm not the community manager. It's not my job to tell you everything's going to be okay and coddle you. So, and I'm a little sharper of an edge to deal with, but I'm there. And if you have legitimate things to say, I will talk to you about it in person or in a chat or on Twitter. We can hash it out.
So, teabagging. Yeah. I'm sure you saw by now, teabagging. Look, briefly, yesterday, teabagging was revealed to be, I guess, banned from KI World Cup.
Sure, yeah.
Today, that seems to be not the case.
Yep, sure does.
It set a lot of people off, including yourself.
I don't like arbitrary rules that can't be enforced.
That's part of it. And
Yeah.
look, people are saying, oh, Brandon Alexander, of course, Xbox Viking on Twitter, who is the organizer for KI.
Who's done
World
amazing
Cup.
things for this community.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
He's a great dude.
Yep.
Every time I've spoken with him, great conversations. I know he's
Yep.
passionate. Whether he's backtracking on this ban or not, to me, that's beside the point. I think really what I think a lot of us were concerned about yesterday was the fact that we're making these rules and we're kind of banning this thing, and it almost felt like to me that is this the esports sort of frame of mind encroaching on FGC again?
I could see how you might think that, but if you really look at the issue, it was it was too illogical to even be that, I think.
Okay.
It was like the best analogy I heard, because I heard a couple analogies. The best one I heard was, let's say at your event, a guy sexually harassed a girl, and your move was to ban girls from your event.
Right.
That's kind of what it seemed like in my eyes. Yeah. Like, you obviously know you banned the dude who did the sexual harassing immediately without chance to apologize. It's done. Zero tolerance for that. But instead, you banned the thing that set him off. I don't know. The whole thing was just like, it really got under my skin. And if you know me at all, I'm a fighter. And if I believe in something, I fight for it. Yeah. And a lot of people said, this is a weird thing to fight for because it's just tapping down on a stick. There's still plenty of other ways to, get under people's skin and set them off and all that. I'm like, right, but this is, I'm fighting you at the top of the slippery slope so that we don't have to get to the bottom. Yeah. That's kind of my stance here is, if this is real and we're telling people they can't arbitrarily tap down too many times on the joystick, what's next that bothers people? Golly, it really bothers me in Third Strike when Chun-Li hits low forward and fishes for supers. So maybe she shouldn't be allowed to do that anymore because it really bugs me. That it's not a discussion we should ever have. I'm all about regulating actions outside of the game for any tournament organizer, and I'm sure I've been a major tournament organizer. Yep. I ran UFGT 7, 8, 9, and 10, and MWC 2010, and those were all major size tournaments. Yep. So I've dealt with a lot of these issues personally, and I just think it's absolutely right to regulate behavior out of the game. You don't want people bullying each other or harassing each other or making anyone feel unwelcome. But everything in the game just has to be welcome. It just has to be, in my eyes, because that's the game you've chosen to play.
Well, I mean, it's like Third Strike, right? Like Third Strike taunts were in the game, and they actually had some of them had a real purpose.
They all did something. It's just some of them were actually useful. Yeah. Yeah. And to me, it's something I'm going to think about for my next game for sure.
Yeah. Imagine now where if this was a situation where a taunt in Third Strike, if Third Strike was a brand new game right now and a taunt pissed someone off and you take that out, it's like you're taking out an actual element of gameplay. And
my argument is that by removing any player action allowed in game, you are removing an element of gameplay, because whether or not crouching repeatedly serves any obvious gameplay purpose, like giving you meter or something, it does affect your opponent's mood, or it can. It does nothing to me.
Right. You mentioned the psychology.
Yeah. And there was this stupid argument where people who were against teabagging were saying, "Oh, these man children just want to press down repeatedly." And I'm like, but if you look at it from the other side, maybe we think you're childish because this affects somebody tapping down on the joystick affects your mood in real life. That is, to me, is actually childish. And then it's just like name calling, and it's like, this is stupid. Why did any of this happen? And now it's on all the major news sites. And
I mean, if you think about it, the biggest offender of teabagging in Street Fighter V won Capcom Cup.
Yes.
I mean,
but it's legit. Like he clearly and visibly frazzled his opponents by doing that, and that's not all of it. That's part of his play style, and it's been that way for a long time. There's clips going way back of Do taunting and teabagging with Guile, and that's not only is that a legitimate style in gaming, in all competitive gaming, not just video gaming, but tabletop too. I'm a vile person if you play me at any tabletop. I'm the worst.
Okay.
But it also has a long history in all forms of competition and warfare. Almost all of our top athletes, if you've watched any sports at all, you couldn't make a counter argument, are trash talkers and mind game players. And it's called a competitive edge for a reason. It's not something a weak player does. It's something a weak player struggles to overcome.
Right.
So you see the one side of the argument say, oh, if you were a really good player, you wouldn't need to teabag me to win. And it's like, but actually that's your weakness, because this shouldn't affect you at all. You have to overcome this now. I've added a layer that you can't deal with. So that's your problem now.
KI Cup. Last year I watched KI Cup, and I think that also helped my interest, even though it took me a year to get into the game almost.
It was a damn good show last year.
It was a great show, and I loved almost everything about it. What do you expect from KI Cup this year?
Challenges. It's going to be tough. We have the unfortunate distinction of being on the exact same weekend as Final Round and also PAX East.
Yep.
It's going to be hard to pull attention and get eyeballs on the thing. Last year, we were relatively unchallenged during prime time. We had a front page on Twitch. It's just not going to fall into line like that this year.
Yeah.
But if you do tune in, I think what you will see is, really informed and excited commentary, really incredible matches, really incredible character variety, which is what we've been seeing from every single tournament we've had this year. I think you're going to see some really cool stuff happen. I know a lot of guys have been saving some tech, saving their characters. Like, I know a few of our players aren't even playing their main characters on stream anymore. When they stream, they only play their subs. I think it's going to be pretty awesome, and I still love our last chance qualifiers. We're doing those again this year. We did them last year.
Yeah.
If you're unfamiliar, that means that anyone who didn't qualify over the year from playing can just show up and enter what is essentially a quadruple elimination tournament, but it's really 4 single elimination tournaments, and the winners of each of those gets placed directly into the top 32 bracket, and everyone in top 32 gets paid. That's very prestigious to be able to, fight your way into. Last year, we expected, we planned for like a 64-man last chance qualifier bracket. Ended up being like 180 people.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
It showed up and they were super hungry and they wanted to get in the tournament and prove themselves. And we had some surprises make it in, and a couple of them made it really deep into the top 32 as well, which is really cool. And I think those are important for every league like this. That is based on open tournaments and qualification points, because not everyone gets good at the same time, right? You have somebody who just struggled for 8 months and they didn't get any points, but then they made some sort of breakthrough or they put in more time and suddenly they are one of the people to beat, but there wasn't enough time to get enough points, right? Those people need a shot. And you'll have players who, just took a break. And now that they were always good, now they're back and they want to get a shot. I think those are really important. I heard Capcom is doing those at next Capcom Cup as well. I think they're really important to have at any event like that. If it's open tournaments that feed into a closed exhibition bracket, I think you should reserve a handful of spots for on-site last chance qualifiers.
Right.
At worst, it just makes a bunch of people show up who are excited about the game to watch and cheer anyway.
With the changes and the updates that you've had over the last year. This is sort of a broad question, but how much do you think that affects the narrative of Killer Instinct for this upcoming KI World Cup?
The players will tell you it's dramatic and terrible and horrible. And that's so and
always
so
say that, right?
I mean, it's weird. They say this about each other a lot. Like, I'll give a perfect example. Sleep. He was a season 1 player. He was a nobody. He couldn't win. Right. And then he came up in season 2 and started beating people. And they were like, that kid is skillless. He is abusing how broken Conra is. Right. And he doesn't actually have any skill at the game, despite Sleep improving every time, showing us new tech every time, showing better decision-making every time, bringing out new characters sometimes too, like playing Arya and all kinds of stuff, like clearly being a great player, and the community just like slapping him down at every turn. And then season 3 comes around, and suddenly it's just like you put a label on it. You put season 3 underneath the title, and everybody just resets. And they're like, Sleep's one of us. Okay. Yeah. He was great in season 2. He's so awesome. And now you have Sleep being one of the guys who's talking down to the new guys who are coming up. And, like Thompson is on a tear this season with Jago. He's killing everybody. And instead of, man, Thompson, you've improved so much. You're just incredible now. The narrative from the players has been more like, Jago's the best character in the game. He's abusing broke stuff. Maybe he doesn't deserve these wins. And that's kind of an ugly cycle. I don't like it. I've been playing long enough to know better, but maybe some of these guys haven't. You can't do it with a broken character without skill. Even if the character was broken, you just can't make it happen. You can't. These people are good. Whether or not their character is the best in the game, they're really good. They're winning tournaments repeatedly, It's not fluky stuff. Yeah. So, I just wish people would take a step back and be more supportive of each other. It's too small of a hobby, especially in the sub community of Killer Instinct, in the FGC as a whole, for us to bat each other down like that.
I'm glad you brought that up. The idea of like the separate communities. I mean, I feel like back in the day, uh, if you're as old as I am, we were, I was an arcade rat,
Quite old, yes.
and yeah, and like we played multiple games. Yeah, we played the popular games, but I feel like we in the arcades we played multiple games because they were just there, right? And
Yeah. I've
whether
played
it's
some real
times
stinkers.
changing, the
Yeah.
technology, the consoles, whatever, we tend to be focused on singular sort of games and communities now,
Yeah.
which is I
I'll
think
tell you why.
unfortunate. Go for it.
It's because we were not good at the games back then. So becoming mid-level at a variety of games was trivial because they shared
Right.
mostly the same rules.
Yeah.
And now, thanks to the internet and the broadcast of high-level play every week, people are, I'm allowed to curse on this?
Go for it.
People are ridiculous now. They're so good. They're so good. Like every single game is now a mountain. Every single one of them. If you want to be able to compete even close to the top level, these players who are winning have so much experience and so much information and so much mechanical practice and so much hand-eye coordination that they've trained over the years.
Yeah.
Just like little things you don't even think about until you're on like year 5 of play, like buffering motions in without pressing the button to make sure you have your anti-air ready. God, like shimmying's been a thing forever, and people are just now like realizing that because of Street Fighter 5.
Yeah, it's not just a 2016 thing.
I was shimmying in Street Fighter 2 before it had a name, right? I was whiff punishing sweeps with throws with Chun-Li. But yeah, people are too good now, and you can't play multiple games seriously anymore.
Yeah.
And I think the ultimate proof of what I'm saying is Justin Wong and Tokido. Two of the absolute strongest multi-game players of all time. And those guys came up in a time when we were decisively mid-level at our best games. Looking back now, I think we can clearly say that we were probably upper mid-level at everything we were playing. And there were only a handful of like really good players at anything.
Yeah.
So you could get results all over the country by being just as amazing as those two were at everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't work today at all. Justin has not had success in multiple games anymore. Tokido has not had success in multiple games anymore because it's just too hard now. It's too much information. The people who are specializing in that game are getting way ahead of you way fast.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can keep up anymore. So I think that era is gone forever.
Man, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, you'll still see this. What you'll see is early game, like when Injustice 2 drops, and nobody knows the game yet. You're going to see like Chris G and Flo and Justin Wong and people like that win for a while.
Early L.I. Joe.
Yeah,
1 month L.I. Joe.
They learn fast and they adapt really quickly. There's a mosquito on my wall, and they'll win for a while, and then because they're not giving that one game their full attention, and we know they won't be. They're going to focus on whatever's biggest at the time because they're sponsored players and that's what they need to do. All of the people who are specializing in that game are going to tear ahead, and it's going to be too hard to bridge the knowledge gap. You're going to get hit by all manner of things you have no idea even exist and you don't have a counter for. And then if you do find a counter mid-match because you're just amazing, they already have the counter to that counter on deck because they've been playing.
Keits, I really appreciate that you took the time to do this.
Anytime, my friend.
I'm happy that I finally invested in some KI, and I look forward to investing into more of it. I look forward to seeing what you guys do. Yeah, cool. Thank you. I look forward to seeing what you guys do with it in the future, and of course, #PlayKI. Yeah. I'm gonna go tweet some stuff and use that hashtag right now.
Sweet.
But again, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for talking to me about some Killer Instinct, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Sounds good to me.